There is a big problem in the miniature wargaming hobby, and its name is Games Workshop. They are the biggest company in miniature wargaming, just as Sauron was once the largest power in all of Middle-earth. And just like Sauron in the Third Age, Games Workshop have found themselves attempting to strike fear in the hearts of man, as well as chasing child-sized people on horseback in order to make them hand over their valuables. We all know what's going on in Nottingham. Lord of the Rings was just the story of a very elaborate mugger. And I can't help but see parallels between Lord of the Rings and miniature wargaming, because every single month Games Workshop go after creators in our hobby and try to shut them down. Almost weekly I hear of another online store, a Patreon, a sculptor, a Facebook page receiving correspondence from Games Workshop telling them to shut down their operations or fight about it in a courtroom. Creators are consistently receiving letters that are designed to intimidate, to shut down competition, to control our hobby, to threaten the free peoples of Mini-Earth. I've done this Lord of the Rings bit in a video before. The analogy is going to become very belabored very fast. But there is another way of doing things, a brighter path, a direction of travel that Games Workshop could take that would help not only creators sleep better at night, but also result in more money for Games Workshop and, most importantly, lead to tons of really awesome minis for all of us. Really awesome minis like these. Think it's impossible? Think again. Life is good, but it can be better. But what is this wonderful land of chocolate and honey? What is this Garden of Eden? Well, that's where today's sponsor, Dragon Trappers Lodge, comes in. And I hear you cry, who are Dragon Trappers Lodge Discourse? I don't know what's going on. I'm so ignorant. I crave your knowledge. That's you. That's what you sound like. It's pathetic. Dragon Trappers Lodge are an independent group of creatives that create and sell 3D printable miniatures on MYMINIFACTOry and Patreon, links in the description below. And they create a ton of different, really awesome miniatures for various games and genres. They've got a ton of miniatures that are perfect for like role-playing games like D&D. You get your beautiful sculpts of monsters and NPCs and adventurers. But really, we're on the wargaming channel here, not my role-playing game channel. And what we're interested in is wargaming content. And oh baby, do Dragon Trappers Lodge build armies worthy of Mordor? I'm getting the two sides mixed up now. Let's see where this goes. But how else can these models be described? Dragon Trappers Lodge are probably one of the most prolific creators in the STL space right now, creating oodles of beautiful miniatures ranging from giant monstrosities to tiny little kitties, and everything in between on a monthly basis. But the thing that truly excites me about Dragon Trappers Lodge isn't necessarily their miniature collection, nice though it is, but an idea, a way of being. You see, these models, they don't just exist for fun. Perish the thought. Well, you thought you'd just paint these and put them on a shelf? Get a load of this jabroni. These models are for a game. They, like I, and some, have a purpose. Models coming from Dragon Trappers Lodge are released to be fully compatible with the one-page rules series of games like Grimdark Future and Age of Fantasy. And to be absolutely clear, Dragon Trappers Lodge aren't one-page rules, but their content is so good that all of the armies they have produced will be on the one-page rules Army Forge when it goes live. Yeah, these models aren't just designed to slot into the space of an already existing army in one-page rules. These aren't created to be proxies. They aren't mere simulacra. No, they are their own distinct thing, their own factions, their own concepts entirely. These babies have rules. Much like regular babies, you don't want them to stay up past 3. And when you think about it, that's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? One creator building entirely new factions and armies for someone else's game. But why is that so rare in this hobby? And this question keeps plaguing me. I rack my brains. Why don't we see this more often? It's not a lack of creativity. The hobby is absolutely too creative sometimes. As hobbyists, we're engaged in something that combines crafting, painting, gaming from the ground to to the air. We are not passively just watching content here, people. We are being engaged in a creative hobby and a creative space. That's why I have to scream all the time. Hello, stop painting. Hello, look up. Yeah, thank you very much. But at this stage, I think it's fair to say that many wargaming hobbyists are just better than everyone else. And I'm saying that without a shred of bias. But it takes a ton of passion to go from merely painting miniatures to actually sculpting and designing new ones from the ground up. And there may be a day when the passion of hobbyists fails, but today is not that day. Geez, those movies were incredibly formative, weren't they? But there's tons of passion in the wider hobby. In fact, I would say the Games Workshop's problem with the old miniature wargaming hobby isn't that there's not enough talent and passion in the community, but that there's too much. Last year, Games Workshop created their very own Nazgul, their ring race. Okay, I think we've probably crossed over into the too many Lord of the Rings references now. But what I'm getting at is that they built an entire department designed to actively go hunting online to try and find smaller creators, in order to target them for cease and desist letters. Yeah, Games Workshop are wasting time and money trying to police sculptors on the internet. The eye is watching ya. And all for what? Well, the supposed problem the Games Workshop is trying to solve is that sculptors and creators online have the audacity to create content and miniatures compatible with their game. And I guess it's Games Workshop's opinion that this somehow detracts from Warhammer and hurts the wargaming hobby. Or, okay, let's be honest, they think it hurts their profit margin in some way because ultimately they're selfish ghouls, like all corporations. But what surprises me is that there is a ton of support for this point of view in the wider hobby community. An assumption that actually third-party creators are stealing from Games Workshop and that Games Workshop have some sort of obligation to go after third-party creators. But that's just not true. I'm sick of hearing it from you over and over again. It's just nyah, 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 with your incessant shrieking. You're wrong, okay? You're wrong. For one, creating content for a game isn't taking anything away from the original creators of that game or harming them at all. In fact, it's the complete opposite. For example, just this month, patrons of the Dragon Trappers Lodge get access to the Simiax Legion's army. Finally, someone has asked the question, what would it look like if King Kong was an actual king and had a full army at his beck and call? Well, the answer is apparently giant elephants, panthers, four-armed gorillas, and flying apes. Yes, those at the Trapper and Veteran Patron tiers on Dragon Trappers Lodge this month get an army of gorilla grods on steroids, and they are incredibly cool and intimidating. It's still pretty wild to me that we're seeing quality miniatures like these coming out. Perhaps my favorite mini from this line is the Scargor, the four-armed ape, because sometimes two arms just aren't enough. And if you go onto the MYMINIFACTOry store for Dragon Trappers Lodge, you can get this mini entirely for free. They're giving it away, the fools! Ooh, this one looks pretty neat. But there is a huge and varied selection here. This is an entire army, all with full rules and totally compatible with one-page rules. That's what makes them so goddamn special. And this thing, look at this thing! These monsters have built an entire jungle empire, and gameplay-wise, they are at their best in difficult terrain, bringing a really interesting gameplay element to one-page rules that has never been explored before. That's right, you too can live out your Planet of the Apes fantasy on the table. And if one-page rules behaved like Games Workshop, this type of awesome extra content wouldn't exist. And that's a massive shame, because this clearly only adds to the game. I have been so impressed by the releases coming out of Dragon Trappers Lodge. They've been absolutely incredible, and I'm so happy that they sponsored today's video. But why is this so rare? There are fools who would rob me of the opportunity to play as monsters, big stompy monsters. My precious, would you truly seek to deny me the other half of Dragon Trappers Lodge release this month? Because yes, they don't just do a single army every month. That would be too easy. They do two. They actually release double the content that I would expect from any creator. And now, ha ha ha, I can stomp. Stomp stomp! Dragon Trappers Lodge are not content with a single army of monstrous ape folk. No, no, no. They must also have these monsters, so-called miniatures. These kaiju of the rift. Look, it's Godzilla, Cthulhu, Rhino Turtle guy from Spider-Man. That was a thing, right? I don't read comics. Orca Whale. And a cute little kaiju hopper, because every army needs a cutie pie. I'm sorry, it's just the law now. It doesn't matter if you're a giant horde of monsters. You gotta have the cute little mascot. In the lore, these monsters emerge from a massive rift deep in the ocean floor, and now they hunger for destruction, which is basically the plot of Pacific Rim. And that's awesome. It has led to an incredibly interesting army with super unique gameplay that has never been done before for one-page rules, because every single kaiju is wholly unique with their own special powers that they use to smash around the battlefield, crushing their inevitably much smaller opponents in games of Age of Fantasy. Compelling pitch, right? And that's awesome to me. Taking the concept of giant kaiju monsters, implementing them in a game, it's just on the face of it a really cool idea. And subscribers to the Soldiers tier or the Veteran tier for Dragon Trappers Law's Patreon get all these miniatures this month too. Yes, those at the Veteran tier get both the kaiju and the Simiax Legions this month. You get both of those bad boys at the Veteran tier. That's an insane amount of value, and there's a link to their Patreon in the description below. I seriously think that this is the future of the wargaming hobby, and I don't say that lightly. Opening up games to allow third parties to create content is just a win-win for everybody. Game designers get more factions, extending the lifespan of their game, gamers get more content and variety, and sculptors get to make absolutely awesome models like this. Collaboration is just so much better than jealous intimidation. Something, Lord of the Rings reference. This is something that Wizards of the Coast, of all people, acknowledged 20 years ago when they cemented the open gaming license for Dungeons & Dragons, allowing third parties to create and sell content to role players based on the mechanics and engine of D&D. That act is responsible for massively extending Dungeons & Dragons and leading to a renaissance of content for players. We would never have such wholesome, important, foundational texts without that license. And now Dragon Trappers Lodge are doing the same thing for one-page rules, and I am so here for that. So support independent creators like Dragon Trappers Lodge. If you're someone who wants more content for one-page rules games or just wants some extremely cool miniature armies, then check out their Patreon or MYMINIFACTOry store and pick up some STLs. The link is in the description of this video, and thanks to Dragon Trappers Lodge for sponsoring this content and allowing me to create these types of videos full time. And a huge thanks to my patrons, especially Sonic Bread and Crypto Kev. And I'll catch y'all next time. Bye-bye.